Okay, so we're now into the back seat area. What we want to do is remove all of our hog rings. So hog ring is what makes the material stick to the frame. So just by cutting them in half, you know, they're like an opening, and then you close it up to pinch the material to the metal. So I'm going to go around, cut all those off, get this material stripped off this seat, and then get it into the car. So areas that we're going to have to modify are going to be here, over for the new wheel tubs that we did, and then this area here where the drive shaft tunnel now comes through. So when we're doing that, we're going to lose some of our springs from in this area. So we're going to use the 3/16 rod to tie everything back in. We may use some sheet metal to form in here. We don't know yet. Once it's all finished, we'll attach the material back on, wrap it where it needs to wrap to, make sure that when we're reattaching that we do add a bar or add an opening if we need to reattach to that area so that the material isn't just sagging off. This one has a cover on it plus the original seat cover. So we'll take them both off. This one's in really nice shape. You know, the seat frame's nice and painted. The burlap is in really good shape. I don't see any rodent issues in this seat like I typically do, so this will be a good one. This piece here, we may lose this. It's not critical. These end pieces are what, so when you put the seat in the car, it hooks into this top rail. I don't know if you can see what I'm doing. So it hooks into this top rail here, and then these openings here go through a little piece of sheet metal that sticks out, and then you fold it over to hold the seat down. So this piece here isn't as critical, but we'll try and save as much as we can. But we know that, you know, we're cutting into here. Where our 4-link bars are should be low enough that we don't have to modify the seat. In the other back seat, the base will definitely be modified. So I'm gonna get this stripped down. Once it's stripped down, I gotta move some stuff away from the car, and then we'll start cutting what needs to be cut. I'm gonna try and do as much fitment as I can in the car with it clipped down and clipped into these so that everything is set as if it would be pulled into the car. So we'll get this stripped, get all the hog rings cut. It's kind of boring to watch. I'm just gonna take my pliers and cut each one and pull away until it's all separated. Sometimes if it's an original seat, there's gonna be hog rings holding the springs to the burlap, and then the extra padding to the burlap, and then the seat cover wraps around it. So there's gonna be a lot of hog rings to cut. Luckily, I'm not gonna be covered in mouse shit doing this one. So I'll bring you back when we're all separated and we're trying to put it into the car. So this is what our seat looks like with no material. I left the burlap on top. I don't need to take that off, but so all those hog rings just clip onto different parts of the spring. So we can see on the corner here, you know, this metal forms into an arc to go around what the original one would have been. So we're definitely cutting that. We may end up even cutting this. Actually, we will end up cutting this. Maybe reshaping what we have here so we can reuse the openings. But a lot of this is getting cut up on this side. We're gonna get it into the car now and see what it looks like. Okay, so we're in the car. So we can see there's our hooks that hang the seat. So we're about 2.5 inches off. On the base here, we're about 2 inches, so we'll have to cut some of that. We'll have to cut some of this. And the first thing that's hitting is right here, exactly where we said was gonna hit. So that's gonna hit there, that's gonna hit there. And you can see again, that's the little hook that holds the seat. So we need to cut this, cut that. We probably have to change the arc of where that comes through and follows down the fender well. So we're gonna pull this seat out now. We're gonna make some cuts and put it back in. So I'll pull it out, decide on where I want to cut it. I'll probably cut it here and there and try and get it back in here and see what it looks like, and then keep pulling it out and cutting it until it fits. And then I'll show you where I got to cut, or show you where I got to fix then, and how we're going to do it. Okay, so we've got it fitting in now, but what you want to look for is like around there. I've got it fitting. Obviously, it's just cut rough right now, but make sure you allow for your fabric material as well. So you don't just want this to sit on top of your steels. You want enough material or enough space for the materials, the padding, the foam, the burlap, the cloth, to all get around. So, you know, we've got tons of room there. We're all set up here. This one's too tight. This one's good. So I'm just going to leave this all in here like this. I'm going to weld to it and get everything set where I want it, and then I can pull it back out, do my finish work, reupholster it, and sit it back in here. It's sitting against the back. It's all hitting nice. The little bracket at the bottom that we talked about earlier down here, it still needs some trimming, but I've already marked out where I want to open that up a bit more for the material like we just talked about. But let's get the sides braced up so that they're not just going to fold in and go wherever they want. And then we'll pull it out, do that cut. We'll get a piece of 3/16 rod shaped to go around here. Again, leaving room for material. And then we'll slide our back seat base in with this one in place. Make sure everything jives. Make sure we have that room for material between the two seats, because if you don't, the one seat could push on the other one, and they look good, one fitting and then the other fitting, but once you get them together, they don't fit well as a pair. So you always want to make sure that you have the room. You know, you do have an extra 1/2 inch of material and padding on top of these seats, so just make sure that you have it and you're accounting for it. So I'm going to get this welded up, locked into place, and I'll pull it back out. We do have these two center springs. I disconnected them. You can see that if they were hooked up, that bow, the bow that they would create. So we're going to we're going to bend a link. You can see here, if that was here, it would be perfect. So we're going to bend a link out, and then we'll reattach it to a piece back here so that we still have this cushion. When this is done, there's a burlap piece that fits over here, but we want to make sure all that is set. So we'll get welding, and then we'll come back. All right, so we got the seats modified. I still have to recover them, but on the back, we took the bend out of here and elongated it on both sides. We had to do an arch for the drive shaft tunnel. I still got to grind that, smooth it out, and then I cut a little bit of this off. On the base, had to redo the corners on both sides, create this hump section for the drive shaft tunnel. Created this 3/16 structure to go over the drive shaft tunnel so that everything sits in here and covers all this up, and there's enough space to come around the wheel well here. And we also had to modify it to come over top of these. That is these cutout sections here. And we don't need to put any support back in that. We already have enough with where it clips in. If I put sheet metal on that, it'll just be another spacing above that we don't need. Also, we've got our quarter panel cards here. So what we did on these was they almost fit. So I just took my tin snips and cut away some of the material here. Here we actually had to come above this stitch line, but that's all that needed to be trimmed on those to make them clear. So I'm going to get these recovered, and then they're done. But I want to jump onto wiring now, so I don't want to have the seats in my way. So I'm going to put them back into my office. We'll start to jump onto the wiring now. Oh, I also got our compressors mount in and the tank in, so let's check that out. So there's our tank. So on the tank, it was too tall to fit in there. It was hitting on our hinge opening, so I lowered the tank. I cut the stand and lowered it 2 inches, and then I put the petcock down the bottom. It's gonna run out to a ball valve that we can turn outside the car or underneath. And then I got this Vi-Air mount here, so this is gonna sit on there off to the side. I'll run a T off of here with an air chuck fitting, so you can fill up the tank with a Schrader valve. And then we're gonna do, so we've got our pressure switch there. We'll have one of those going to the front, one of those going to the back valve set. That one will go probably to the compressor. And then we got to run those compressor lines through the car, or not compressor lines, those air lines through the car and up into the glove box, which is where he wants all his manual valves to be. So those will come through. We'll probably run those through, come through here. I'll do a cutout with a grommet, and we'll come under here and up to that. And then all the wiring, we're going to work on cutting all this wiring out of here. So we got all of our factory wiring there. We're putting in an American Auto wire in this car, and it is a 15 plus kit that we're putting in. So I did just receive my ferrule kit. So I picked up a ferrule kit. I don't like to just have the wires pinched in there because they fray. Get this open here. So when I go to do all the wiring and they go into the fuse panel, each wire going into the fuse panel is going to get a ferrule. So that slides over the end of the wire, and then we use our tool, and that'll crimp it into a square, and that way it'll hold the wire and not fray and create potential arc points. It'll be in there nice and tight. So cool to get that. And then I got another one here that does the all the connections for the headlights and anything that's a push fitting or a push male spade, female spade, and any eyelet. So we'll be able to do those now, and obviously shrink tube on top of that stuff. So I think now I've got to grab a couple air fittings, but the bags are in, the shocks are in, tanks in, compressor. I'm going to paint that mount before I mount the compressor, but it can be mounted. Our floors are all done. I got to do some cover panels over the trunk floor access holes, and those were to get to the bags, so you can see the fitting, and the upper bag mounts are in there, so it just gets to that easier. Other than that, I tried to pick up a drive shaft nose for this slip yoke. I can't buy those, so I'll have to figure out what that length is going to be, and then get the drive shaft company to make a drive shaft for me. And then we still got brakes, fuel line. I got to remount the front flex lines. When I'm doing that, I'll probably do shocks. So right now we'll switch to wiring. Once wiring's done, we're going to do fuel line, brake line, and get those front shocks in at that time. So we have about another month on this car, a little less than a month, and then with the Christmas coming up, we're gonna have some days that we're missing, but that's cool. So I'll get the seats recovered, probably when it's too crappy to take the 54 out of the garage and leave it outside. I'll figure out where I'm gonna mount this fuse panel right now, probably behind the glove box, since the glove box is already missing, to put that manual valve kit into it. And then I want to mount this T-fitting so that I've got a hole around here, so you can just Schrader hook up to there to fill the tank, so it's a little hidden as well. We're going to run all the wiring. So the wiring on these cars comes up the A pillar, through the roof, and down the C pillar. Obviously, with the headliner in place, we can't get to that, and it's not as simple as just hooking the new cables up to the old ones and pulling it through, because there is like a clip, a little finger clip that holds the wires in a bunch of spots across here. So you don't want to do that and just pull the wires. We may end up, if you do that, pulling the wires and stripping the casing on them. So we're going to run them across the floor in a covered area, so that if any time, something has to be modified, want to add something, you're not having to run it either from the firewall or from the trunk. You can find issues. I doubt there'll be any issues, but we really want to make sure that everything's accessible. And the old way is cool. That's how my car is wired. I've only had an issue when it was my own fault putting a garnish trim screw in, and I hit the power wire for my switch box, and I kept shorting out. And as soon as I took a screw out, it was fixed. So I had to cut that wire, fix it. But I also don't have a headliner in my car, so I'm not too concerned about any issues like that. But we're going to run this one different than the original factory. Under the hood, we're going to create a battery box over here. There is not going to be any fresh air tubes, and there's not going to be any blower motor. So we're going to we'll probably mount our fuse panel on the other side of this so that it's easily accessible. Can get to all the fuses, see if anything's blown, anything like that. So that's the plan for this. So right now I'm just going to go through, start cutting all the old wires out, see if I can pull the ones out of the A pillar just so they're not flopping around up there. And then we'll start wiring this car. So this kit does come with pretty much everything. It comes with, this is our fuse box here. So you can see on this one, it's not a bunch of wires coming out of it. Your only wire coming out is your power to the battery. I can't remember what the other ones are. We'll get into that. And then it's all labeled, and they're all screw-in terminals. So you put your wire in there, screw it down. They give you a little screwdriver. We got our flasher for LEDs, horn relay, some other fuses out here, accessory, radio, wipers, heat, battery, park, and then we've got smaller ones here, battery 2, flasher, gauges, and ignition. So this is a really nice kit. And hey everyone, just an update on the status of the wiring. We've got the wires run for the headlights and marker lights. We've got our main fuse in. That's got our supply, our alternator hookup, our starter, and then I've got the air ride main there too. So that's all going to run through the firewall. And then inside, we've got these wires are going to run to the back of the car. Marker, turn signal, third brake light. I'm going to run it just in case he hooks it up. Fuel gauge, reverse, all that's in that bundle. And we've got all this here to hook up. And then the fuse panel is over behind the glove box over there. So I'm going to start running all the wires to the back now and terminate those. So we're going to do, this is a 3 light bulb per tail light. So we'll do a running light 1, reverse light, and turn signal. So we'll go, running light will be this one, turn signal, and obviously our reverse light. We've got our license plate light that we have to hook up, and then we'll dump our fuel gauge down through there for that one hooked up. And then we'll also run our wires for our compressor over here. So we've got the large one. They're going to run into a relay. Relay's in here to trigger that on and off. And then we got to get everything terminated into the fuse panel. Figure out our turn signals on this. They're all just that cloth wire. So we got to figure out what that looks like. The wires that ran through the roof that we were talking about, they're clipped in, so I couldn't pull them out. So I cut them as short as I could, and they're just going to stay up there until the headliner gets removed or up there forever. So I'm going to continue wiring on this thing. We still got to get the battery mounted. Battery's down here. I'm going to make a mount for it that'll go in this position here. All the battery terminals are already run to that location, so that'll be the perfect spot for it. And then we took out the heater controls, and we're going to run that blanking plate that we found earlier in the bin. So that's going to look nice in there. Get rid of the stuff that's not being used. None of the heaters are being used. So I'm going to keep progressing on this wiring, and we'll pop back and I'll show you what it looks like. A quick update on the 53. So we've got the wiring almost done. We got to put some loom around it. We got our front back seat in. Our dash is all back together. I had a drive shaft made for it on Friday. Our air tank is in. Compressor. It's all wired up. So I've still got front shocks left to do. I've got to crawl under it and get the reverse light, or the reverse lights hooked up to the sensor. I gotta get the battery cables onto the battery. Get the rubbers. I've got them in this box. On the lower control arm, we have those rubbers in between the main bolt and the upright, so I got to get those back in. I'll do that when I do the front shocks. Brake lines are brand new throughout the car. I've got to terminate them at the fronts here. I haven't done that because I'm going to do it when I pull the wheel off to do the shocks. So on my list, I've got covers for the rear tray so you could access the bag bolts. I got to do... What else I got on there? Yeah, reverse front shocks. I had to take the turn signal switch right apart and figure out where the wires run to. So inside of here, I pulled the steering wheel. Backs of the terminals were pretty corroded, so took that module right apart, sanded all the terminals out. I got continuity going through everything now, so we should be in a good place. Blew a bulb, so we replaced the bulb as well. Still got to tie up the wiring on the front here behind the grill, and man, we're moving along. Still got to torque all the back wheels. Rear shocks are not adjusted, but bolts are in. I just got to put some lock nuts on those, and they're done. We're getting really close to the end. The car is being picked up on the 20th, and another one being dropped off that week as well. So we've made it through a lot of our parts. The wiring took, quite a bit of time to get done in the car. Like I said, I got to go back through and do all the cleanup, make it look really pretty. But she's moving along really well. Switch box. We had that leaking gauge. Turned out it was from the supplier who pre-assembled all that, tightened the crap out of it, and snapped inside the gauge. So we did a new gauge. They're all in there now. Tightened down. Blanking plate is on. Cluster's back in. All of our gauges have power for lighting. So we're set on all of that. So we're down to down to the nitty gritty now, which is good. I'm going to work on the front shocks now. Once that's done, we'll get the car. No, we won't get the car on the ground because we got to bleed brakes. So we'll get a helper out here to do the up, down, bleed all the brakes out. It's using a stock reservoir right now, so under the floor we've got the access. Can't really see it. There's an access hole there to fill the reservoir up. So we'll get that accomplished. Other than that, it's coming along really well. So I'm gonna crawl under the car, finish up that reverse light wiring, get our front shocks banged out, and bleed brakes. Then we'll set her on the ground. So we got our driver's side front shock in. So I did a little bracket that goes around that grease nipple, extended that brake line fitting, and then you can see here, there's that cutout going around that Zerk fitting. Oh. So just gonna move on to do the passenger side now. We'll bleed the brakes, and then we can put this thing back on the ground. I'm gonna get all the wiring tied up. I don't have any loom on the inside of the wheel well yet, so I'll put some loom on that, loom under the hood. We'll test everything out, and she's gonna be ready to go. I didn't touch the trans cooler lines because the exhaust comes right by there, so I don't know what route they're gonna run the exhaust. So once the exhaust is in, that can be done. But drive shaft's in, all of our shocks are in, all of our brake, fuel, all those lines are in, our interior's back together. Almost a wrap on this thing. It's getting picked up soon. So next video that we see is going to be the full walk around final product. It'll probably just be in the garage here, so it'll be a little limited on aspect, but should be a good video anyway. Thanks for watching these guys. Any questions, put them in the comments. If you could subscribe, that'd be amazing. 2025, I'm trying to grow, trying to put more out. I know the beginning of this year has been pretty light. We're already 2-3 weeks into the year, and this is the first video I'm putting out. But I thought it was a 52 Buick. It's a 50 Buick coming next. We're bagging that one. Then after that, the 62 Olds, we're bagging that one. Then we're gonna get onto the Scout. I'm gonna shift the Scout and the 54 around next week, so the Scout's on the floor, and I can do the exhaust, I can do the rear bumper. I bought a S10 step bumper for the back, so I think that'll suit it. Also grabbed some bear claw latches for the hatch tailgate. What else did I grab? Just grabbed exhaust and the bear claws. We'll have to do some sort of limiting strap on the tailgate so it doesn't fall down, because my wife does have to open that to fill it with gas. We're aiming for spring to have that on the road driving around. The doors won't be on, but that's cool. We picked up some Tropical Glitz flake. We tried on the internet, to look at colors. Every screen gives you a different thing, so I figured I'd order some, and when it came, it was phenomenal. I ordered some stuff for the 57 as well. We'll keep that hush hush, but I do know what color that car is going now, so now I can kind of figure out what the scheme is going to be. I was planning on doing it matte and gloss like the 54 is done, but after seeing this stuff, I've changed directions. So I know what the interior and body are going to look like. I don't know if I'm going to do something different with the roof, but we'll see. I'm super stoked to get moving on with those two cars as well. Like I said, 2025, I hope it's a big year. I got a lot planned, a lot in my head. I'm not going to get to the Triumph Chopper, but that's cool. I don't really care. That's more of I want to build it to display it. If you guys want to learn more about that bike, let me know. I'll do a little shot on that, a little video. But we're going to stick to cars. and just keep pushing, keep hustling, keep growing. Thanks again, everybody.